A 35-year-old woman storms into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom after a road rage incident, fully convinced she's right and everyone else is wrong. But when she begins blaming the victim, the police, and even challenges Judge Caprio himself, she sparks a response that delivers a powerful lesson about accountability and emotional growth. This is the story of Michelle Torres, a revealing look at what happens when someone's refusal to accept responsibility collides with Judge Caprio's calm wisdom and deep understanding of emotional maturity. Where are you watching from today? Austin, Montreal, or maybe Las Vegas? Drop your city in the comments, because this story about self-control and owning your actions connects with anyone who's ever faced anger or conflict. If you've ever seen someone lose their temper and blame everyone else for their mistakes, hit that like button and share the most absurd excuse you've ever heard. You're about to see Michelle's world of excuses crash into Judge Caprio's unwavering pursuit of truth and justice. Her fiery outburst will shock you, but his composed response will show how patience and wisdom always overcome rage. Stay tuned. Until the end, Judge Caprio's final thoughts on emotional maturity and self-discipline may completely change how you handle heated moments in your own life. It's Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. at Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio begins his week by reviewing several weekend cases involving traffic violations and reports of aggressive driving. One file stands out. Michelle Torres, age 35, charged with aggressive driving, tailgating, and causing a public disturbance. Officer Johnson's report reads like a study in anger escalation. Defendant exited her vehicle during a traffic dispute, engaged in a verbal confrontation with another driver's family, used hostile language toward officers, and claimed everyone else was at fault. At 77, Judge Caprio has seen countless anger-fueled cases. He knows many of these people never learned to manage their emotions, often believing their feelings justify any behavior and seeing themselves as constant victims. Around 20 people wait in the gallery: a nervous teen with his father for a speeding ticket, an elderly woman reviewing parking paperwork, and several others scrolling through phones, clearly missing work to attend court. Officer Johnson sits ready with his report and photos beside Carlos Rivera, the man Michelle targeted, and his wife. Elena court stenographer Jennifer Kim sets up her machine with the calm precision of someone who's witnessed countless emotional breakdowns. At 9:35 a.m., the bailiff calls Michelle's case. The courtroom doors open, and Michelle Torres walks in, her entire posture radiating confrontation. She wears a wrinkled power suit, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and an attitude that says she's already on the offensive. Michelle is a corporate trainer, specializing in assertiveness coaching for executives, a career that's taught her to equate confidence with dominance and compromise with weakness. Her entire identity rests on never being wrong. "Good morning, Miss Torres," Judge Caprio begins in his steady, professional tone. "You're here regarding several citations issued after a traffic incident on Thayer Street yesterday afternoon. How do you plead?" Instead of moving to the defendant's stand properly, Michelle steps to the center of the room and immediately begins her defense, or rather, her attack. "Your Honor, I need to clarify the truth, because the police report is completely inaccurate. I was driving responsibly when a family in an SUV started brake-checking me and acting recklessly. Their kids weren't even secured in the back seat." The courtroom grows tense. Officer Davis glances up with concern. Maria Gonzalez shakes her head, and a teenage boy in the gallery looks uneasily at his father. Judge Caprio raises his hand calmly. "Ms. Torres, please approach the bench properly, and I'll explain how this process works." But Michelle continues, her tone unwavering. "Your Honor, I don't understand why I'm being treated like the criminal when I was the one dealing with dangerous, aggressive drivers who clearly shouldn't be on the road." Judge Caprio's face remains neutral, though those familiar with him notice the subtle pause, a sign he's considering something carefully. "Ms. Torres, according to the police report, you were seen following too closely, making an unsafe lane change, and exiting your car at a red light to confront another driver. Michelle's cheeks flush. That's not true. She was driving ridiculously slow, probably texting. I had every reason to pass her. She was putting everyone at risk. The report also states, the judge continues, that you used profane language in front of children and refused to return to your car when asked. Your Honor, I was standing up for myself. I wasn't going to let an irresponsible driver make me late because she doesn't understand simple traffic laws. Sometimes people need to face the results of their actions. Judge Caprio sets the report aside, studying her closely. After nearly 5 decades on the bench, he's learned to spot when someone truly believes their own story, even when the evidence says otherwise. Ms. Torres, are you suggesting your response to this situation was appropriate? Michelle doesn't hesitate. Your Honor, I reacted like any reasonable person would when faced with dangerous, careless driving. I simply made it clear that her behavior wasn't acceptable. Officer Davis shakes his head. Maria Gonzalez looks down, and the stenographer keeps typing steadily, recording what's shaping up to be a revealing session. Judge Caprio leans forward, his voice calm but firm. Ms. Torres, just so I understand, you believe that leaving your car at a red light to confront another driver was reasonable behavior? Michelle crosses her arms. Your Honor, someone had to call her out. She was clearly a danger to everyone on the road. Everyone on the road has a responsibility to behave safely. And sometimes, people must be told directly when their actions cross the line. According to witness reports, you approached Ms. Gonzalez's car, used offensive language, and frightened her children sitting in the back seat. I wasn't talking to the children, Your Honor. I was addressing her reckless driving that could have caused an accident. If her kids got scared, that's on her, for driving so poorly that others had to step in. The courtroom goes quiet. Even Michelle seems to realize her tone isn't helping, yet instead of calming down, she becomes more defensive. Your Honor, I pay taxes. I follow traffic laws, and I have the right to expect others to do the same. When someone drives dangerously, they should be held accountable. Judge Caprio slowly removes his glasses, wipes them clean, and speaks in a calm but firm voice that fills the room. Ms. Torres, you seem to think you have the authority to stop traffic, leave your vehicle, and confront other drivers whenever you disapprove of their behavior. I have the right to protect myself and others from dangerous drivers, Your Honor. No, Ms. Torres, you do not. What you've described is road rage. Aggressive conduct that can border on criminal behavior. For the first time, Michelle looks genuinely taken aback instead of defensive. In her mind, she's always the reasonable one correcting others' mistakes. Your Honor, I think there's a misunderstanding. I wasn't being aggressive. I was being assertive. There's a difference between standing up for what's right and being a problem. Judge Caprio rises slowly, his 77-year-old posture radiating decades of courtroom authority. Ms. Torres, let me read what the police report says. He picks up Officer Davis's report and reads clearly. Defendant approached victim's vehicle aggressively, shouted profanities, including multiple F-words, accused the victim of being incompetent, and ignored repeated requests from witnesses to return to her car. When police arrived, defendant continued arguing and claimed the victim deserved to be yelled at. Michelle's face flushes red. That report makes it sound worse than it was. Judge Caprio continues. It also states that you told Officer Davis, and I quote, "Some people need to be taught how to drive, and if the police won't do it, someone has to." Well, that's true. Your Honor, if people drove properly, none of this would have happened. Judge Caprio sets the report aside and looks directly at her. Ms. Torres, do you accept any responsibility for your actions yesterday morning? The question lingers heavily. Michelle responds, I take responsibility for standing up for safe driving, for not allowing careless drivers to endanger others, for doing what needed to be done when others wouldn't. Her answer tells Judge Caprio everything he needs to know. She cannot recognize her own misconduct. Ms. Torres, you've just said you take responsibility for everything, except the behavior you were cited for. Because those actions aren't the real issue, Your Honor. The real issue is people who can't drive safely and get upset when someone calls them out. Judge Caprio steps out from behind his bench, positioning himself directly before her. "Ms. Torres, I'll ask plainly, and I expect a plain answer. Do you believe that getting out of your car, approaching another driver, and yelling at them in front of their children was appropriate and lawful?" He returns to his seat, his authority filling the room. "Ms. Torres, you've just told me you think road rage is acceptable when you disapprove of another's driving." "I wouldn't call it road rage, Your Honor. I'd call it accountability." And with that word, accountability, Michelle exposes the root of her misunderstanding, setting the stage for Judge Caprio's lesson of the day. He leans back, his tone softening with concern rather than judgment. "Ms. Torres, you used the word accountability. Let me explain what that truly means." She begins to respond, but he raises a hand to stop her. Accountability means taking ownership of your own behavior no matter what others do. It's about recognizing when your actions were wrong, even if you felt provoked. What you've done isn't accountability. It's vigilantism. You've made yourself judge, jury, and enforcer on the road. And that's not how our system works. Michelle still appears convinced she's the misunderstood victim, not the one at fault. "Ms. Torres, I need you to listen carefully, because your freedom may depend on it." The word freedom finally captures her attention. Road rage is not a simple traffic violation. It's a criminal offense. Leaving your vehicle to confront another driver is assault. Using profanity around children is disturbing the peace. Ignoring requests to stop is creating a public disturbance. Judge Caprio picks up another document from his desk. "Based on your actions yesterday and your complete lack of remorse today, I could charge you with criminal threatening, disorderly conduct, and aggressive behavior." Everyone shares the road, and sometimes people must be reminded when their actions cross the line. According to witness accounts, you approached Ms. Gonzalez's vehicle, used profanity, and frightened her children in the back seat. "I wasn't talking to the kids," Michelle says firmly. "I was addressing her reckless driving, which could have caused an accident. If her children were scared, that's her fault for driving so poorly that someone had to step in." The courtroom falls silent. Even Michelle seems to sense her tone isn't helping her case. But instead of softening, she pushes further. "Your Honor, I pay taxes, I follow traffic laws, and I have every right to expect others to do the same. When someone drives dangerously, they should be held accountable." Judge Caprio removes his glasses and cleans them slowly. When he speaks, his calm yet firm voice fills the room. "Ms. Torres, you seem to think you have the authority to stop traffic, exit your vehicle, and confront other drivers whenever you disapprove of their behavior. I have the right to protect myself and others from dangerous drivers." "No, Ms. Torres," he replies. "You do not. What you've described is road rage, aggressive driving, and potentially criminal threatening." For the first time, Michelle looks genuinely surprised. In her mind, she's always the reasonable one, correcting others' mistakes. "Your Honor, I think you're misunderstanding. I wasn't being aggressive, I was being assertive. There's a difference between standing up for what's right and being a problem." Judge Caprio rises slowly, his 77-year-old frame carrying decades of authority. "Ms. Torres, let me read exactly what the police report states." He picks up Officer Davis's report and reads steadily. "Defendant approached victim's vehicle aggressively, shouted profanity including multiple F-words, accused the victim of being an incompetent driver, and refused to return to her car despite repeated requests. When police arrived, the defendant continued arguing and said the victim deserved to be yelled at." Michelle's face flushes. "That report makes it sound worse than it was." "The report also notes," Caprio continues, "that you told Officer Davis, and I quote, 'Some people need to be taught how to drive properly, and if the police won't do it, someone has to.' Well, that's true," she insists. "If people drove correctly, none of this would have happened." Judge Caprio sets the report down and meets her eyes. "Ms. Torres, do you accept any responsibility for your actions yesterday morning?" The question lingers heavily in the air. "Your Honor, I take responsibility for standing up for safe driving, for not allowing dangerous people to endanger others. I take responsibility for doing what needed to be done when no one else would." Her answer says it all. She cannot recognize her own wrongdoing. Ms. Torres, the judge replies, you've just taken responsibility for everything except your actual conduct. Because my actions aren't the problem. The real issue is people who can't drive safely and get upset when someone calls them out. Judge Caprio steps down from behind his bench, approaching until Michelle can't avoid his gaze. Ms. Torres, let me ask you directly, and I want an honest answer. Do you believe it was appropriate or lawful to get out of your car, approach another driver, and shout at them in front of their children? He returns to his seat, his presence now commanding the entire courtroom. You've just told me, he continues, that you believe road rage is justified when you disapprove of someone else's driving. I wouldn't call it road rage, Your Honor. I'd call it accountability. And with that single word, accountability, Michelle exposes the depth of her denial, setting the stage for Judge Caprio's most important lesson. He leans back in his chair, his expression shifting from stern authority to something almost paternal. The courtroom remains completely silent, knowing something meaningful is about to happen. Ms. Torres, he says, you use the word accountability. Let me explain what that truly means. Michelle opens her mouth to respond, but his raised hand stops her. Accountability means accepting responsibility for your own actions, no matter what others do. It means acknowledging when you're wrong, even if you believe someone provoked you. He leans forward, speaking directly to her. What you've described isn't accountability. It's vigilantism. You've made yourself judge, jury, and enforcer for traffic violations. And that's not how society works. Michelle's expression shows she still views herself as misunderstood rather than mistaken. Ms. Torres, Judge Caprio continues, listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because your freedom may depend on understanding it. The word freedom finally gets her attention. Road rage is not a traffic violation. It's a criminal act. When you leave your vehicle to confront another driver, that's assault. When you use profanity in front of children, that's disturbing the peace. When you refuse to comply when asked to stop, that's creating a public disturbance. He picks up another document. Ms. Torres, based on your actions yesterday and your complete lack of remorse today, I could charge you with criminal threatening, disorderly conduct, and aggressive behavior.